The Colts got the primetime W against the Bengals, and it was our first extended look at Anthony Richardson in a game since October. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. What is up, everybody? This is Jake Arthur reporting to you live from Paycor Stadium, where the Colts have defeated the Cincinnati Bengals in their preseason finale, 24-17. I think I probably have that wrong. I'm already thinking wrong here. But no, it was a big win, 27-14, I think. Big win for the Colts, obviously. Lots to take away. Anthony Richardson is obviously the big talking point here. Had a bit of an up and down day, kind of a perfect opening drive for the Colts. 12 plays, 80 yards, took over 6 minutes off the clock. So just going off of that, you think it's going to be a great day, right? But so the Colts go down the field, put 7 points on the board. A.D. Mitchell's first touchdown of his career. So everyone's riding high, right? And then immediately on the second drive, the Colts are backed up into their own territory. And Anthony Richardson throws a pick six to a Bengals defender for a 14-yard return there. And that's when kind of everything has to come back down to earth a little bit. So, this was a game for Richardson where you could look for anything to confirm any biases you had, positive or negative. But despite there being a lot of negative and, a lot of people are kind of running with that tonight, I do think we have to look at this carefully. So let's just kind of lay the groundwork here. So Anthony was 8 of 14 passing, which is 57%. He did have some big completions to Alec Pierce, had a couple of them, A.D. Mitchell, and then Kylan Granson as well. The ones to Alec Pierce I thought were really nice because the first one was like an 18-yard chunk, then he got a 13-yard one. So a couple first downs to Pierce over the middle of the field. One of them was, a quick hot read while having someone, blinding in on his face. So that was good for him to get rid of the ball accurately and to get a good pickup. Some of the incompletions really could have gone either way. There was kind of a 50-50 ball to Drew Ogletree on the drive where they actually still got a touchdown to A.D. Mitchell. It would have been a tough catch by Ogletree, but it did hit him in the hand. So you can go either way with that. Perhaps he could have caught that. Michael Pittman did have a bad drop on a second down over the middle of the field, hit him right in the numbers. So that was second down. On third down, Anthony just absolutely skied it, just airmailed it to A.D. Mitchell. Just his feet were set, and he didn't really have pressure. I think on that play, it just literally got away from him. I don't really think there's any explanation on that. But Pittman's drop led to that bad pass, and then the Colts had to punt. Later, there was another third down play where it was third and long, and Anthony was looking for A.D. Mitchell over the middle of the field. And on the surface, on the TV angle, I know it looked like a poor throw from Richardson. It was far ahead of Mitchell, but looking from up here and then even explained further from Shane Steichen afterward. So Mitchell, right after he came out of his cut, he was kind of running a shallow post, but he was expecting to see a different coverage, and he was a little surprised by what Cincinnati had there. So he had just a slight hitch when he came out of his break. So he wasn't exactly where he was supposed to be. He should have been right there where the ball was in stride, able to catch it and keep running. So that kind of led to that incompletion. So a lot of these things tonight with Richardson and the pass catchers were miscommunications. The interception, the pick six with Kylan Granson, he thought Kylan was going to be going inside a little more. And that's stuff I guess you are glad to see that it's happening in the preseason. Hopefully not so much in the regular season. It's not been a great week in terms of communication between Richardson and the pass catchers. Even going back to Tuesday during the joint practice, there were a couple times where Anthony was under duress constantly during the practice, especially early in the first half, and he'd be getting rid of the ball, and the ball would be right there for the receivers, but they just weren't expecting it to be there already, and they weren't able to quickly, acclimate to the ball being right there and catch it. So I don't know what the deal is, because it's not been like that all summer, but over the last week, the communication has not been great. So with that not really being a theme throughout the summer, I don't quite know what to think about that. Maybe they're just going through a bad period right now. Maybe it's new stuff that has been added in recently that they're still working through and trying to kind of work out the kinks and find out. Everyone's trying to get used to where they're supposed to be on these certain plays. That's just stuff, we're never going to have all the answers to that, because it's not stuff that, Shane Steichen or anybody else is going to divulge in detail about it. If it gets to the regular season and we're still seeing that stuff, that'll be bad news and something we need to see them kind of work through. But in all, I think it was important to look at this performance and kind of, especially since it only lasted about a quarter and a half, a little over a quarter, kind of break it down individually into each instance of what went wrong. Because on the surface, if you're someone who is super skeptical about Anthony or just doesn't even like him outright as a player, you probably had a lot of things out of this that confirm your views. But I'm trying to balance everything all together. I think there was some really good stuff. I thought the first drive when they went up tempo was great. I think that plays into his strengths. I think he's really comfortable doing that. The up tempo stuff, quick reads, get the ball out of his hands, just nice and fast. And, he's finding his guys in all areas of the field. So I think that's really productive for them, but it's also kind of finding that balance of how much you can use that, because you kind of gas the defense, but you're going to gas your own offensive players as well. So you can only do that so much. I know that was kind of a thing during the Andrew Luck era as well, where when they started doing that, it was super productive and they were putting points on the board, but you have to find that happy medium of how much can you do that. When it comes to Richardson, and it's a guy who you just keep having to give him reps because he's so inexperienced, I think you're just going to kind of have to live with some of the lumps there. The last kind of black mark on his record for today I didn't mention yet was he had the fumble where he was being chased down from behind. I'll be honest, I do worry occasionally about he doesn't always sense when pressure's coming from behind him. I don't know if it's just a matter of, not peeking over his shoulder occasionally, but there's a lot of times he's so athletic and he knows he can get out of so many situations. But since he isn't a run-first quarterback, he is always trying to wait for a passing lane to develop. And by that time, in comes, the blitzer, the rusher coming from behind. Luckily, they took out the ball tonight and, didn't go for his legs or anything like that. So that could have been much worse than a fumble. But the Colts, fortunately enough for them, they were able to recover that. So lots of good and bad to take away from today. Kind of some extremes. The first drive was like something every coach would absolutely dream of. Like, that's probably exactly what Shane wanted to see coming into this. And then there were so many warts afterwards. So you kind of have to find a happy medium after that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the offensive players not named Anthony Richardson that were out there today. All right, guys, it's getting late in the summer, but it is still very much concert time. I know for me personally, there's still a few concerts left on the docket, even going into December. If you're like me, you might be a devout concert goer or like me, who's just kind of a casual guy. Gametime is your spot regardless. They've got a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of ticket options. Something really cool that Gametime is doing right now is they have a 50% offer off of Labor Day tickets for when the Arizona Diamondbacks host the LA Dodgers. Again, that's on Labor Day. If you're one of our listeners out west or you just are down to travel and do whatever, this offer is exclusively on Gametime. and there's limited availability. So get your tickets while they last. Locally here, if you're not someone who wants to travel out to the West, an example of a big show that's coming up, Post Malone will be here out at Verizon /Ruoff /Deer Creek on September 12th. So don't miss out on getting super deals on that show over at Gametime. For example, you could use the lowest price guarantee, which means Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find comparable tickets like in the same area for a better price elsewhere. They've also got the Gametime ticket coverage, which means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, sickos. It is 1 a.m. and you are all here watching me. So thank you very much for that. For your next listen, whether it's right now because you're an insomniac or you're going to go to bed after this and you want to listen to something else when you wake up, make that Locked On Fantasy Football. Get daily insight to the best fantasy draft strategies so that you can win your league this season. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so let's chat about some offensive highlights today. So with the first team offense, I really liked what I saw from Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell. They combined for 4 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown. Again, Pierce had two catches. The very first one of the game was 18. He had another one for 13 yards, a couple first downs. A.D. Mitchell had, I believe both of them were for 9 yards. His touchdown was for 9 yards. Just a nice, shallow streak across the middle there from his slot position. And once he caught it perfectly in stride, just had a nose for the end zone there. And the defender tried to do every wrestling move in the book to him, ripped his helmet off in the process, but he held on, got the touchdown. And I know it's just preseason, but I feel like it's really good for guys like that to get that out of the way so they're not like hunting for it and it becomes like a big deal mentally throughout the season. That first touchdown for Mitchell is off the board. And so now he can just kind of focus on doing his thing. Not that would be plaguing him all the time, but for some guys, they get in their head about not scoring. I mean, we see a guy like Michael Pittman Jr., incredibly productive year after year, but is just not really a touchdown guy. For Mitchell, so far so good. As far as the running game goes, the backup running back spot, not only is RB3 getting like super, super interesting now, but the new guy on the block, Demetric Felton, had a 40-yard touchdown run today. That's not even a guy that we're factoring into this. And, maybe we ought to be because that is a guy who's a veteran, who's been around the league a little bit. And the Colts picked him up after Trey Sermon got hurt. But they very commonly will add a running back around the beginning of the year off of waivers during like cut down times. And maybe Felton was a guy they had their eye on already that they would have gone after around that time. So as far as we know, Felton could be a guy that they want to sneak at least onto the practice squad, or maybe they go with 4 running backs and it's not Goodson and Hull as 3 and 4, but Felton knocks one of them off. We just don't know. But Goodson, I think, is separating himself a little bit in this RB3 battle. He just, in terms of movement and quickness and shiftiness, he's just a little different. Hull is like a tough downhill runner. I think does really well between the tackles. I think both of them have done great and they're doing everything they're being asked. But I think, when it comes to running backs and like creating your own yards and picking up what's not there, I think Goodson is probably the guy that gives you a little bit more. So if it is truly down to one or the other and they're not going to keep 4 running backs, I feel like Goodson has this thing by just a hair currently. But those two guys combined for 87 yards on 22 carries tonight. That's 4 yards a carry. Again, Felton had 44 yards on 4 carries, including the 40-yard touchdown. So pretty much all of his yardage was on that one touchdown there at the end. Jason Bean, everybody's favorite QB5. This is getting interesting, guys. He had another good game tonight before he was, I don't want to say ruled out with a shoulder injury, but we were told in the press box that he got a shoulder injury, but he was already out for the game with Keaton Slovis in there. So I don't know if he would have been out or it's just something they identified as he left the field. But anyways, Jason Bean, shoulder, but he had a great day again, 4 of 4 for 52 yards, 118.8 passer rating, ran the ball 3 times for 15 yards and another touchdown. He's a hard-nosed runner. That's a guy who doesn't have anything to lose right now and everything to gain. So, for the second consecutive week, we've seen him, just kind of bear down and kind of stick his nose in to get in the end zone. He had to fight for it this time, and it went to review. But after they initially reviewed him short of the goal line, they switched it up for him and gave him the touchdown. So Bean passing the ball well, running the ball well. I think he's a layup for the practice squad at this point. He has done an awesome job. But I don't think he's just like that flavor of the summer kind of quarterback. We always see the Stephen Morris, the Brad Kaya, those guys, the guy who's always quarterback 3, 4, or 5, throw Chad Kelly into the mix as well, does really well in the preseason, but doesn't factor into the Colts' plans long-term. I don't think Bean is like some guy that's going to like earn a big spot on the roster eventually or anything, but I think he is an outstanding option to be like a scout team quarterback. Again, we've discussed this recently on here a lot, Zach and I, but like when you're facing the Ravens, you're facing the Bills, you're preparing for a quarterback who will just take off and run anytime. Having a guy like Jason Bean back there who is hard to track down and gives defenses fits, that's a good guy to have out there running the scout team. So another good performance from Bean. Maybe not so much in training camp, but he's really done something in all 3 preseason games. So passing marks for him. Up next, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. There was a few guys that turned some heads there as well. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel on here lately. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we got something a little different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you got to do is get a Google account and have a current form of payment, and then you can cancel anytime. When it comes to hedging your Colts bets, we were telling you all week about this one. The Colts were 6.5-point favorites coming into this one. Covered that. The total over-under was 34.5. It went over that, so hopefully you guys were feeling aggressive on this one. You could thank Dimitri Felton for that one. Maybe you are more comfortable betting on players who are actually in their regular season right now. Saturday, you got Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston going up to Minnesota to take on the Lynx, so maybe prepare yourselves for that one. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so we discussed A.D. Mitchell getting his first touchdown. He was not the only Colts rookie to have a first today. Laiatu Latu on the very first play of the game got a sack. Dude only played a handful of plays today, but of course he got out there, got the sack, hit the left tackle with a little bit of a cross chop and kind of dipped below him and was far out of range, and the rest was history. I think that's going to be, I don't want to say easy work from this year, but I think he's going to be a lot more advanced for a rookie defensive end than we're used to seeing, especially around here with the Colts when they tend to invest in very raw guys who are big upside guys but no production. He's both. Like he's already got a pretty high floor. So I expect production from Latu pretty early on. But he's obviously going to be splitting time with Tyquan Lewis, Kwity Paye, Dayo Adangbo as well. But that was great to see. Again, Mitchell get his first touchdown, Latu get his first sack out there today. Nick Cross was out there at free safety. Julian Blackman was at strong safety. Those roles were reversed on Tuesday during the practice. Cross was at strong safety and Blackman at free. Again, I don't really know how much it matters anymore. Zach had mentioned maybe it means that they're going to be playing more too high this year. I don't know, because when they're out there, it's not so much that they're playing too high. It's just that they're legitimately rotating those guys. I don't know if they're just still seeing what works best or if it's situational. But at this point, Nick Cross was out there with the rest of the starters. You know, he played even a little longer than some of those guys. So, I mean, I think our answer tonight, without the Colts officially saying it, you know, Nick Cross is probably the other starter officially, aside from Julian Blackmon. I'd be very surprised if we got to week 1 against Houston and it wasn't Cross and Blackmon out there. Again, are they going to have super defined free safety, strong safety roles? I don't know. It could depend on the opponent. It could depend on the package and personnel that the offense is presenting. But if we're just saying who your 2 starting safeties at this point, I think it's Cross that joins Blackmon. And I think tonight was kind of a not so subtle confirmation of that. Guys that did some nice things tonight, linebacker Jalen Carlisle's had a couple tackles, I think 2 of them in a row. He seems like he's back to being in the mix there with among the starting linebackers. Again, I think it's situational, but I think you'll see Saguna Luby out there sometimes. I think you'll see Jalen Carlisle's out there sometimes, aside from Franklin and EJ Speed. Again, I think it's just going to depend on the situation, but I think we're going to have a role for all 4 running backs that we see out there, or linebackers that we see out there. Eric Johnson II, we've been kind of just begging to see something from him, really anything. He had a really high effort play today that led to a big play for the Colts. He chased down the running back far downfield and was able to knock the ball out for a forced fumble, which Michael Tootsie picked up. So that was good for a nose tackle to go all the way from the line of scrimmage, like 20 yards downfield, to hit the ball carrier so hard that it pops the ball out and then, you know, creates a turnover. That's a huge play. You know, tenacity is not a skill. It's kind of a mindset. And that's something that, even if it doesn't pan out for him, maybe if he doesn't even make the roster, stuff like effort will always go a long way. And you'll be able to make some type of play sometime as long as you give effort like that. That's why we see guys like Adetomiwa Adebawore occasionally getting, you know, more production than what his current, you know, skill level provides. I mean, super athletic player, but he's not a complete package by any means yet in terms of putting all that athleticism together to create a clearly defined mechanical player. We saw that from Dio Adengbo and Kwity Paye earlier in their careers as well. So effort will get you pretty much anywhere you want to go. EJ Speed, I thought, did a couple really nice things. I saw him, you know, thumping some guys at the line of scrimmage, had a tackle for loss early. I think it was on a run play. Ronnie Harrison did the same thing, had a really nice tackle for loss as well. At this point, I mean, I don't think he's really in the running to be the other starting safety anymore. It's been really heavily Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas at this point. But I mean, Harrison is still out there flashing occasionally. We'll see what it comes down to with the 53-man roster, if that's enough to stick around or not. But you know, good preseason finale tonight. It's obviously, like we talked about the other day, it's always good to get a win, even if it's during the preseason. I thought we saw some good things from a lot of the starting players. The defense has been surprisingly good. I know they were playing with the 2s and 3s of the Bengals out here tonight, but they looked awesome against, you know, the Joe Burrow-led first-team Bengals offense on Tuesday. So the defense really passed the test out here today, I think. So, all right, tomorrow, Zach and I are going to be back with you. I think Zach is planning even more content later in the week, but we want to start breaking down our 53-man roster predictions here pretty soon. So we'll be bringing that to you guys anytime now. Be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely be with you Friday. I'd say tomorrow, but it's already 1:15, and my brain is mush. I don't know about you guys. But yeah, thank you guys again for making us your first listen of the day. Whether it's daytime or what, again, 1:15, that counts. So go listen to Locked On Fantasy Football next, whether that is after this or when you wake up in the morning. Don't forget, if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get the inside scoop, what's going on down here at the field, the sidelines, the post-game locker room, whatever, follow that link in our show notes, and I'll answer your questions pretty much all the time. When people get their questions into me, I try to answer them as quick as possible, and I'll give you my honest opinion on things as well. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at ZachX2 on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram as well. And please be sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love your ratings and reviews as well, especially with the season here. We would love to get more eyes and ears on us. So be a friend and tell a friend about the show. And with that, you guys have a great night. I have a 2-hour drive ahead of me. Hopefully you guys can just roll over to bed right now. But we will talk to you later on Friday.